How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your September 2019 horoscope for Pisces, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. We are starting September off with Mars conjoining the Sun in Virgo. Now, of course, Mars is the planet of our action, our drive. He energizes what we're doing. Mars is a malefic planet, meaning it kind of causes some problems. Mars can heat things up and dry things out. It severs, it cuts. But while Mars is in Virgo, it's focusing on the specifics at hand and being detailed oriented and kind of wanting to pursue more of like a task list. However, as Mars has been underneath the beams of the Sun, it's been kind of hard to really pinpoint where or what you've been wanting to do. However, on September 1st, when Mars conjoins the Sun, this is when Mars's energy is kind of getting purified by fire in a sense, and it's getting put in the spotlight where we can feel more re-energized and a little bit more focused on where we want to direct our energy. And for you guys, this is happening in your 7th house, and we're going to be talking a lot about your 7th house in this episode. However, Mars being in your 7th house is focusing on relationships. The 7th house is one-on-one relationships, whether that's professional, casual, personal, intimate. And as Mars has been in your 7th house, it's kind of like there's been problems here, but you've been wanting to clean it up, but it's kind of like where. And as Mars conjoins the Sun, this is kind of that time of knowing exactly where to direct your energy and where to start focusing that to where you can start solving issues. Then 2 days later, on September 3rd, is when Mercury will conjoin the Sun. And this is a little bit more important because Mercury's home sign, the sign that it rules, is Virgo. So while Mercury's been in Virgo, our communication, our ideas, and how we vocalize our thoughts has been a lot more clear and concise. Mercury has been also underneath the beams of the Sun, so it's been a little bit burnt up, a little bit hard to see. But as Mercury conjoins the Sun as well, this is the same idea as Mercury kind of being put into the light, kind of getting refreshed and getting a clear mind. This is kind of like when the light bulb pops up in your head and we could start addressing, relationships, whether that's, again, professional, personal, intimate, whatever they are. This is a good day to really start focusing on your line of communication with other people and addressing what needs to be said in a black and white way, in something that's concise and that's clear and that's specific, because that's what Mercury and Virgo is about. Then on September 4th, 7th, and 10th, we're going to have Venus oppose Neptune, Mercury oppose Neptune, and the Sun oppose Neptune. Now, Neptune's in Pisces right now, and Neptune is the deceiver. Neptune is all about illusion, fantasy, imagination, as well as just kind of, I always like to use the word foggy for Neptune. And Neptune's in your 1st house. No surprise. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. And so that can be making a lot of parts about yourself really confusing and dualistic, and you kind of go back and forth with what is and what isn't. However, as Venus, she's now in your 7th house in Virgo, she's been trying to connect you more to relationships in more of a specific way. The only problem is Venus is in fall in Virgo, where she doesn't operate too well, and she can't be as Venus as she wants to. She can't connect or have as much fun or indulge in the ways that she wants. Venus is wanting to beautify and emphasize all of the specific tiny details that Virgo is all about, but can kind of get overwhelmed and a little bit, she can't put all of the value into every little detail. There's just too much there and can kind of get overwhelmed with it. However, as Venus opposes Neptune, this is kind of like getting a better idea of where value needs to be put into. And this is valuing more of the factual, more of the clear, and more of, again, the black and white and the specific. And this is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So as Venus opposes Neptune, this is kind of like, getting a little bit past the confusion of how you can see things and being more like, hey, this person, this relationship is X, Y, and Z, and because of that, I'm pursuing this, versus this relationship is bringing X, Y, and Z problems and is confusing, is illusionary, and isn't really serving me. So as Venus opposes Neptune, this is a good time to really look at what are the facts with what value you're getting within the relationships in your life and maybe focusing on them a little bit more. But then Mercury opposes Neptune, and we go from a value shift or like a feeling shift to a mental shift. And Mercury opposing Neptune is where Mercury can kind of pierce the veil a little bit and see a little bit more inside and get a little bit more of a clear perspective of both sides of the story. And as Mercury is opposing Neptune while Mercury is transiting your 7th house, this is kind of like where communication problems could come up in the sense of things are specific and clear but don't exactly make sense to you. But as Mercury does oppose Neptune, I think this is about looking at, again, what's black and white, what is clear, what is specific, and relying on the facts rather than hypotheticals that can be easily created. Then the Sun opposes Neptune, and that's when things kind of change a little bit. And the analogy I've been making in my videos has been, when you're driving through fog and you turn on your brights, like all it does is make it harder to see. And as the Sun opposes Neptune, it's kind of like that same idea. However, the analogy I've also been using is, instead of turning on your brights, turn on your fog lights. Fog lights are underneath the main lights of the car, and they light up the road underneath to where you could see the reflectors. You can keep going through deep fog. And this is that time where, we go from that value shift with Venus opposing Neptune, that mental shift with Mercury opposing Neptune, and with the Sun opposing Neptune, this is being able to see it play out in like an example. And so while this is going on in your 7th house, there's a lot to really see and focus on, where you're putting your attention to when it comes to relationships and it comes to other people. And the Sun opposing Neptune is really going to make it clear on where you should be putting that light, and where putting that light on the confusing stuff just makes it even more confusing. Then on September 13th, Mercury conjoins Venus while they're both in Virgo. And this is pretty positive because as Venus is in Virgo, kind of struggling with the details, wanting things to be just right, Mercury kind of comes in to save the day and is like, all right, Venus, I know that you can't handle all of these tasks, so I'm going to do them because I can handle it. And this is kind of like helping alleviate Venus with all of the tasks of the specific details that she wants to do. This is Mercury kind of coming into the picture and being like, we can get this, this, and this, and this done. However, with that, Mercury is also projecting the voice of Venus here. And it's kind of like, well, what is Venus saying? Where do we need to start seeing, the specifics in situations within relationships? And where do we need to start finding more value and pleasure in that? And Mercury is kind of like connecting that value shift and that mental shift together and kind of like, all right, I'm starting to see the bigger pieces here. But also on September 13th, we have the full moon in Pisces. Now, while Mercury's conjoining Venus in your 7th house and things are starting to get a little bit clear and specific and communicated here, this full moon's happening in your 1st house of yourself, of your personality, of what you look like, how you react and respond. The sign Pisces is all about, blending emotions and, logic together and changing exactly, kind of like processing experiences. And this is a full moon. This is lighting up an axis. This is lighting up a dynamic and giving us the ability to really see the full scope of things. And as Mercury is conjoining Venus in your 7th house, and there's a lot of, clarity, there's a lot of specifics being addressed in this area, this is bringing, attention and reflection to you about how do you feel about these situations? How do you address this type of, environment? What are the things that you want? And this is Pisces. This isn't about having boundaries. This is about being able to flow with and change as you go along. So I think that this full moon is going to allow you an opportunity to really look at yourself in an in-depth way after you have this kind of bridge being drawn with Venus and Mercury conjoining in Virgo. Then on September 14th, as Mercury and Venus are still conjoining each other, they're going to simultaneously ingress into Libra. Now, this is important because Venus is moving out of her sign of fall and into her domicile sign of Libra, into her home where Venus can do Venus things pretty damn well. And this is Venus, this is value, this is love, this is connection, building bridges. And this is Libra, this is about balance, this is about one-on-one relationships. This is about, again, what's fair, what's right, what's, it's a correct mannerism to have when it comes to relating to other people. And that's kind of just an analogy because while Venus does go into Libra, she's also entering your 8th house. Now, the 8th house is all about other people's stuff. The 1st house is you, 2nd house is what you have, 7th house is other people, and the 8th house is other people's stuff. The 8th house also rules death and, hidden things and secrets and the taboo. I also like to use it for change, for fear, because it's an aversion to the ascendant, so you can't always see what's going on there. However, as Venus enters your 8th house, where do you need to bring more harmony and actually start putting in value and receiving value from this 8th house? The 8th house rules other people's money, insurance. It also rules inheritances. So this is a good, or also debt too. So this is a good time to really focus on where you owe people money, where you owe people time and obligations, where you can balance that out and bring that Venus energy into that area. However, Mercury is also moving into your 8th house, where Mercury, our ideas, our thoughts, what we're thinking about, and how we're vocalizing those things. Going into the 8th house is also bringing a mental attention to, what exactly it is that we're focusing on when it comes to, changes, when it comes to other people's stuff, when it comes to, how exactly we're involving ourselves and other people and blending that together. Then also on September 14th, we have Mars opposing Neptune. Now, as Mars was in Virgo, wanting to be specific about where to address things in relationships, where problems are, and wanting to tackle all of the tiny little details within it, Mars has kind of also been a little bit lost because it's combust right now. It's underneath the beams of the sun, so it's kind of like, what exactly do we need to be doing? As Mars opposes Neptune, this is, kind of focusing in on what can I address now? What are the facts and the information that I have available to me at this moment that I can use to address moving forward within relationships? And as Mars opposes Neptune, this is kind of seeing past the fog and the illusion that you can have over yourself and the way that you see things, and being more direct and clear with how you're going about relationships. Then on September 18th, Saturn finally stations direct, and Saturn's been retrograde for a few months now, and that's been giving us a lot of hardship, a lot of problems and trials and tribulations. And this has been happening in your 11th house of friends and bigger groups of people, social networks, and you could have felt like a limiting vibe here and not being able to have that much freedom. But as Saturn stations direct, this is when you get to import basically all of the lessons that you've learned and actually put them into practice now. This is going to be a time of, not necessarily taking on more responsibility, but taking on responsibility in itself when it comes to how you address friendships, how you address working together in bigger groups of people, how you network, how you socialize, and X, Y, and Z. Then on September 21st, we have Jupiter squaring Neptune. Now, this aspect has been going on for the majority of the year, but as Jupiter is now direct and making its third and final square to Neptune, this is where the bigger picture kind of comes into play. Now, when Jupiter was moving forward in Sagittarius, it was kind of giving you a lot of hopes and dreams on what to work with. This is in your 10th house of your career, your public vocation, how people know you. And then as Jupiter stationed retrograde, this is kind of like the time of questioning and being philosophical about why you want to do things, or if you're going to do it, why you would do it. And it's been squaring Neptune this whole time, so it's kind of been like, we have this optimism here and this faith, but you could still be a little bit confused about your role in it. Now, as Jupiter stations is now direct and is moving forward and it squares Neptune again, this is kind of like that faith and that optimism and that truth prevailing over the unknown and the uncertainty that you can have on yourself. And I think that this is important to not necessarily just throw a blind faith into this, but to be optimistic, to be encouraged to expand in this area of your 10th house of your career while Jupiter's still transiting this part of your chart. But, when it comes to shadows, when it comes to things that are confusing, when it comes to uncertainty, you kind of have to hold on to the faith that there's a place for you to grow here. And I think that that's what this Jupiter square Neptune theme is really going to be like for you guys. Then on September 23rd, that's when the sun moves into Libra, and that's when the main luminary, the light, is being focused away from relationships and focused on other people's stuff, other people's problems, things that you didn't know what were going on, debt, inheritances, all of that stuff. And that's not to say all of that's going to come thrown at you, but that's just where the light is. So that's where you're going to be seeing things, and that's the perspective and the light that you will be seeing things from. Then on September 25th, we have Venus squaring Saturn, and I find this one a little bit important because Saturn's in its domicile sign, Venus is in its domicile sign, Venus is in the superior position here, so Venus has a little bit more say-so in the situation, but these are happening in kind of weird places in your chart, and in your 8th and in your 11th. And as Venus is in your 8th, where it's kind of like, you're wanting to, put more value into if you have like debt, paying it off, connecting more with, other people's stuff and being more giving to other people's problems and giving more time to their needs. this may be a problem with Venus squaring Saturn because the Saturn's in your 11th house, and it's kind of like knowing where your boundaries are with friendships, knowing, you know, where you need to take on more responsibility and be more disciplined in that area. I think that this is going to be a time of really looking at how you can balance your own, not only your own personal needs, but other people's needs as well, without going over the boundaries that you've tried to set for yourself, and without also, you know, while also pleasing your friends and the other people you're wanting to take care of more. Then we end September with the new moon in Libra on September 28th, and this is kind of giving you a level head and clearing out the energy a little bit more and resetting your intentions around the 8th house topics. Now, I would like to advise to get a little bit more well versed in the 8th house, because it does rule a lot of different things and it can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different people, even though you're all Pisces risings, or hopefully you're Pisces risings and not just Pisces suns. But as we have this new moon, this is kind of clearing out this area, giving you the time to focus and to really look at it to see what's going on. And again, this is Libra, this is Venus here, this is Mercury here, being more adept, you know, not only through our communication, but through our ideas in this area, but also placing more value. And as this is squaring Saturn, this is kind of like, all right, where do we have to take our obligations in this area here, but also still meet the same rules that we've applied to ourselves over here. And that's how we're basically ending September. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next month.